Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Esoteric and a continuing series, Model Museum, where we review every single Sega Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3 game in a retrospective fashion that's not an arcade racing game, because I did that last year. And today we're taking a look at Sega Super G, a game that I reviewed over 2 years ago. A lot of time has gone by since. But when we talk about the Sega Model 2 and everything it was capable of, this game is one of the best examples, and it is one of my favorite games on the platform. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But when I say I love this game, I love it for three very specific reasons. One, because it's a Sega game, and you know I'm going to love that. Two, because it is a skiing game, and I worked in skiing for the longest time. And three, it is one of the gigantic amusement cabinets that Sega released in the Model 2 era, where you could actually stand on it and emulate skiing. And funny enough, the one place that I constantly saw this cabinet was when I was traveling for work in skiing. It would be at basically every single big ski resort somewhere in the lodge, which I always thought was hilarious. You're literally on vacation there to ski, but yet they've got an arcade game in the lodge that lets you ski virtually. Just go outside and hop on the lift, it's right outdoors. But honestly, I think this probably gave a lot of people a better sensation of skiing, because there's a lot of people out there that were beginners, and you can totally make it feel like you're an expert skier when you play this game. Obviously, right off the top, the premise is super simple. Get to the bottom of the course faster than anybody else. Obviously, in real life, this doesn't happen in this way. You run against the clock, and the fastest time wins, but it's a Sega game, and it's a quasi-racing game, so you're trying to get that first place finish. You'll see here we have the red and blue gates, standard downhill skiing style. You need to go between both of them to make sure you get that extra time. If you miss it, you lose seconds. If you get it, you get an extra second on the board. So it's so important to make sure you hit at least a few gates. But honestly, in normal difficulty, the timing is so easy and fair that you could probably blow by over half the gates and never actually worry about losing your time. It's one of those things that seems like Sega tried to balance this for fun, because pretty much every one of these cabinets was going to cost you at least $2 to actually play. This is not a quarter or a 50-cent cabinet. These big amusement cabinets would request at least $2 from you, and I used to see them at like $3 in some resorts in the mid-2000s. It was not a cheap game to play, so Sega definitely didn't want you to end up playing for 45 seconds and losing your credit. So that was actually kind of nice of them. And if you take a look at the actual look of this game, it has what I like to call the model look. Sega Model 1, 2, and 3 all had these super vibrant poppy colors and texture styles that just are indicative of what Sega developed at that time. Somebody could do an entire artistic study on just the color usage alone on Sega Model 2 hardware, and it would be highly entertaining to see, because they always just had this certain look to them. It's a very primary color situation where there's big blocks of just solid blue, solid yellow. They chose certain colors and really hyped them up as much as they could, and it gives the game almost like a timeless quality. Of course, 3D hardware has progressed a lot since the Sega Model 2, but honestly, if 3D had never gotten any better than this, I would still think it looks spectacular. And the texture work and those bright primary colors do help this age well. If you put something like Sega Model 2 next to other arcade hardware of the era that didn't use these colors, I feel like it does age it a little bit more, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. But it's one of those things, Sega Model 2 and particularly Sega Model 3 just still look so modern. Now on the control aspect of this, if you emulate it, you can use an analog controller, and I'm trying to figure out how to use a Wii balance board right now to modify it so you can actually pretend like you were skiing. I'm like halfway through the mod and it's presenting a lot of problems for me, but I'm still working at it, and hopefully I can show you guys a video soon. But as someone who skied their entire life professionally and worked in skiing, I will say that Sega got really close to what it feels like to actually do a downhill race. Now, the farthest thing I've ever competed in is Super G. I've never done a downhill event, it just wasn't my thing. But these are intense, fast races, and the sensation of speed here is second to none. Taking your racing line, carving in, obviously we don't navigate around trees, that would be dangerous, feels so close to the actual sport. And of course, because it is a Sega arcade game, it's got a spectacular soundtrack. Go ahead and listen, I'll be right back.
Fantastic! Yeah! Congratulations!
It just 100% works as a soundtrack as far as what Sega loves to do with their arcade games. You'll see here that we go through this little bit of a preview of all of the racing that we did, and it does seem to be the racing that we actually just had happen. It seems like it saves it into RAM and shows it back to you. But you do get multiple modes in this game, and you have a different way to play. But going back to the control aspect, I understand that 99% of you have probably never been in a Super G or downhill race. It's been very many years since I've done it, about 2 decades. But I can tell you that this does feel about as close as you can possibly get to it without actually going downhill. The movement of the arcade cabinet, if you see it, really does emulate well the pressure you need to put on your edge to actually get a carving turn. Trust me, it's a lot harder in real life, but it does have that good amalgamation of what it would actually feel like. When you do catch air, you do fly down the hill, and honestly, you can sometimes fall and hurt yourself. But Sega kept this mode going. We go over to Model 3 and you have Ski Champ. They take the downhill racing aspect, but they throw tricks into it almost like it's combining Sega Super G as well as air tricks and Top Skater into a skiing game. But moving back over to Sega Super G, I actually prefer this to Ski Champ. Now while Ski Champ is a ton of fun, I'm not so much into it for the actual trick aspect. I love the downhill racing. I love competing against opponents in the AI and trying to find a clean racing line, because getting first place in this game is not an easy thing. You need to 100% understand where every single turn is, where you want to set up for it, how hard you need to carve to be able to not only get around that turn but to set yourself up to reverse course. Or something like Ski Champ here is just absolutely unlike skiing. I have definitely never skied in a forest that was on fire, but I have skied over rails that were on fire with propane tanks. Long story, but it was for a photo shoot. But you will see here in Ski Champ, it is just a different vibe, but it's the same vibe we get in something like Sega Water Ski. All of these games seem to be foundationally built upon themselves, and they all have a similar vibe going on. You stand on a platform on the arcade cabinet, you move left and right, and you maneuver yourself to do tricks or to make turns. Sega was the champion of making these type of arcade games. Now other companies like Namco did them as well, and those are very fun games, but the sensation of speed and the overall handling, Sega did it better than absolutely anyone else. And if you do see a cabinet for this game, 100% throw money into it, because I haven't seen one since probably like 2007. And as I mentioned in previous videos, the sad part is these cabinets break all the time. Human beings stand on them of all shapes and sizes, and they beat on the controls because the entire point is the controller is supposed to be beaten on. And while they are built to last over decades, of course they're going to break down, so a lot of these cabinets are just becoming extinct, which is a huge bummer to me. And that's why I do hope I can figure out a way to get a Wii balance board or something else working with this game so you can get closer than sensation, because the only way to truly understand how this game plays is to either find an original arcade cabinet in an arcade or to purchase an arcade cabinet yourself, because while you can find the bare PCB and wire it up with analog controls as far as controllers are concerned, there is nothing that's going to match standing on the skis in front of a cabinet with that big monitor turning left and right. And if you do know where there is a cabinet for this game, leave me a comment down below. Last time I talked about it, nobody had seen one, I believe. I went through the comments, I couldn't see a single mention of anyone knowing where they are, so it's quite possible that this may be very well extinct, at least in North America. But I just love these type of games. They were stuff that you could never do in your home in the 90s, and even still, there is no gaming experience at home where you can actually feel like you were skiing. Even something like VR is not going to have that swaying motion left and right dealing with your legs as input. And of course, you get to put your initials in the end like any good arcade game. But that is Sega Super G. It's one of my favorite skiing games of all time. I skied for a very long time, and it feels pretty accurate to me. Short of that, I'll have another model video next week, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well. But yeah, if you see a cabinet, play it. Bye-bye.